Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. This is the weekend edition of The Bullet for Saturday, the 7th of January, 2023. I'm Paul Lathrop. Joining me today, at least the first one joining me so far today, John Richardson of Only Guns and Money. We're scheduled to have Mike Piwowarski join us. We're scheduled to have Charles Heller join us. Neither of them has showed up so far, so I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. And as we do, I want to remind everybody, if you're catching us on the Facebook or YouTube Polite Society podcast pages, you can comment on that live video. We'll get those comments, we'll put them on the air, and we'll discuss them. And now I think I see Charles Heller starting to log in, so we'll open it up here in just a second. If you're catching us anywhere else, if you're catching us on Twitter itself or anywhere else that picks us up, go to Twitter, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. We'll get those comments as well, and we'll get them put up. We'll discuss your comments on the air. And let me see. Yep, I got Charles right there. Looks like he's setting things up. So,
no, I'm all set up.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get started, gentlemen. And we're still waiting for Mike, but the big story happened yesterday as we were going off the air. Fifth Circuit ruled that, and here comes Mike in joining us. Fifth Circuit ruled against the Trump-era bump stock ban. The ruling, as I understand it, is not, again, for constitutionality. It's because Congress made a law saying what was a machine gun, and the ATF decided something else was that ruling, and so they can't just do that. John, you and I were talking about this a little bit pre-show. Is that your understanding as to what happened as well?
Yeah, what they did is they looked at the construction of the law, the National Firearms Act of 34 and the Gun Control Act of 68. They looked at how grammatically it was written and what is the definition of the movement of the trigger versus the movement of the trigger finger, and they said it was unambiguous. Just on the grammar alone, you couldn't say that it was a machine gun. Number two, even if you could say it was a machine gun, ATF doesn't have the right to change the interpretation of a law or a law and then make a criminal penalty. It's what they call the rule of lenity. And since, if you have an unregistered machine gun, was it a 10-year sentence? It's covered.
Yeah.
So they reversed and remanded it back to the district court to rule in favor of Mr. Cargill.
Mike or Charles, do you want to chime in on this one?
Go ahead, Charles. No, I think you said it pretty comprehensively.
All right. How about you, Mike? Anything you want to add to it, man?
Yeah, when it came to the bump stocks, Paul, we talked about this when President Trump put them up on the chopping block, right? He had to deflect. If everybody remembers, the meeting he had with both parties, and the soundbite quote for him was, I know everybody remembers it, where he said, "Well, let's take the guns and do due process second," and which was part of a much larger piece of that conversation, but that's the only thing that gets remembered. I said back then, and I know we talked about it as well, he put that forward because, one, look at the percentage of the people that are affected by it. And I know that's no excuse with the bump stock ban, but it would affect a very small number. And two, remember, this guy was about the long game and the art of the deal. He put that forward knowing the judges he was going to put on the bench, knowing the way that they were going to rule in these cases. This is just more proof that he put this forward knowing that it wouldn't last, yet he would get the Democrats and the liberals off his back with gun control for pretty much his entire presidency.
Well, and I think going to that point, it should be noted that the arguments for this were heard before Biden got one of his appointees onto the Fifth Circuit.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't able to participate in the decision because the arguments were made before he got there. So elections matter, and at least in this case, the decision came along before the liberal judge could put his weight behind it.
Right.
Actually, it really didn't matter because it was a 13-3 decision in favor of Cargill.
Yeah.
I mean, it was overwhelming. To me, the key, it's not so much you have two other factors in play here. You now have a split in the circuits. So Sixth Circuit en banc overread the original decision. So you have Geddes, the GOA case, and a couple others. And now you have the Fifth Circuit saying, no. We disagree. So you have a disagreement among circuits, which could make it available to be ruled on by the Supreme Court. More importantly,
that's one of the yeah, absolutely.
But more importantly to me, what do we know that's coming up? Pistol braces. The redefinition of pistol braces, which would make use of a pistol brace a short-barreled rifle. Again, an NFAA item. Heck of a lot more pistol braces out there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Are there bump stocks out there? Mm-hmm, there are. Are there more pistol braces than bump stocks? I would say by a factor of 5 at least.
Or more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, probably more. And there would have been as many bump stocks as there were pistol braces, except, the bump stock got thrown on the band table back then. But, yeah, and this is, I wonder, you bring up a great point, John, does this affect what they're proposing to do with the pistol braces here in the next week or two, is when it's anticipated ATF makes their new announcements during the SHOT Show week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to go back to the good old days of the Obama administration when ATF showed up at SHOT Show, and they didn't show up; they showed up as an exhibitor at SHOT Show. It wasn't quite the us versus them in the Obama years as it is during the Biden years.
Yeah. What was the guy's name? Randall Richardson caught a lot of grief, and probably the reason he was not named as didn't go from acting director to full director, because he wanted to work with industry. He knew that it was to ATF's advantage to have good gun dealers who would stop straw purchases, who would inform them that when they knew criminals were being criminals.
Yeah. Let's stay with federal circuits. Our next story, the Third Circuit on Friday said that it would consider next month whether a federal law prohibiting nonviolent felons from owning firearms is constitutional in the wake of the Supreme Court's Bruin decision. And the Philadelphia-based U.S. Third Circuit Court of Appeals voted to have the full court rehear the case of a Pennsylvania man convicted of welfare fraud who argued the ban violates the U.S. Constitution Second Amendment right to bear arms. I've said this a bunch of times on the air. Here comes a bunch plus one. If somebody is too dangerous to possess firearms, why are they not still in prison? If you're safe enough to have your freedom, you ought to be safe enough to have firearms. Who wants to chime in to start with on this one? Okay, Mike. I'm gonna you're voluntold. What do you think about this one, man?
I'm always trying not to be the first to jump in. That's why. Paul, I agree with you. It's at some point along the way in our history, we went from rehabilitation to punishment, right? Or when where there was punishment, we stopped doing it, and then now it's kindler, gentler, and here's your 3 squares a meal, 3 squares a day kind of thing. And if I recall correctly, where it's a felony now that they're pretty much what we use now as any felony is supposed to be a barring offense. It used to be the whole high crimes and misdemeanors. It wasn't felonies and misdemeanors. It was high crimes and misdemeanors, I guess they could look at. But as far as a nonviolent felon, I think we're all on the same page, right? It's nonviolent, and if you've done your time, you've done your supervised time after you're released. Why not? Why take that right away from them? But I agree wholeheartedly. If you're too dangerous to have a firearm, then you should be, you should be locked up away. There's still, Paul. I think there's still some gray area, right? You got like DUI offenses and alcohol offenses like that, right? They don't let them possess the firearm in many states because it's an alcohol charge, and we know how that works on the 4473. That would mean that they're admitting that they have an addiction problem. So there's still some gray areas there, but I think I'm 95% on board with you. If you're too dangerous to have a firearm in public, you should be behind bars somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I also got to agree about nonviolent felons, and I think that was one of the things that I think Amy Coney Barrett brought up as in a dissent in the Seventh Circuit before she was elevated to the Supreme Court. She objected to a nonviolent felon being denied their Second Amendment rights. So I think this is good. I'm glad the Third Circuit decided to take it up. I think they really need. There's the definition of what makes a felony has spread so wide, whether at the state level, but especially at the federal level, that what is it? 3 felonies a day. There's the book that we're all probably breaking some law somehow, some way, just by being here. And a prosecutor with a grand jury could find any sort of things to bring up against any one of us. We thought bad things.
Yeah. Well, and how far away from far away from the thought police are we? I mean, New York wants your social media going back 10 years for when you apply for a concealed carry permit. New Jersey is that close to doing the same thing. We're coming very, very close to the thought police.
Probably closer than we realize, because who's monitoring it now? We know the government monitors your social media, right? So are they trying to predict your activities based on that? Yeah, absolutely. We see people getting knocks on doors for what they post on their social media.
Well, and look at the Twitter files. Elon Musk, since he bought Twitter, has been releasing information over the past month, and we know that the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense had heavy influence in what Twitter was allowing to go through, and was shadow banning, and was straightforward banning.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, they've been behind the scenes pulling the strings for quite a while over there onto what side of the information is released, right?
Let me, Charles, you want to chime in on any of this? I haven't heard from you yet today.
I just want to suggest that this needs to be approached, I believe, from a legal standpoint, in the same way we did any other civil right. And we need to point out long and loud until the other side screams about it, that this is exactly how we used to treat people of color, and thank God we don't do that anymore.
Oh yeah. Let me get a couple of. We got some comments coming in here. C&T Designs and Arms says, I've said it many times, the text of the law has to matter. If the agency can just make things up, then any of us can become felons at any time.
At the stroke of a pen.
Or keystrokes, yes. When they decide, when AFT decides that all semi-autos are now machine guns, we're all felons.
Right. Yep. Or the possession of a paper and a semi-automatic consists of a machine gun.
Yeah.
Right. Or my belt loop, right? Or my shoelaces, right?
Yep.
Or rubber band, exactly.
Especially the semi-automatic shoelaces.
That's true. Yeah. The kind with the shoulder thing that goes up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I want to remind everybody, do please continue commenting. We have plenty of stories, but I want to get your comments in too. Especially you folks over there on the Facebook side who I have not seen anything from yet. YouTube is chiming in, but next story I got, and this one I came off Dallas Observer. I didn't run into it till later this morning, but a bill filed this week in Austin, meaning a state law, would allow public and charter school employees to carry concealed handguns on school grounds under Senator Bob Hall's Senate Bill 354, as long as the employee is licensed to carry a concealed weapon. School districts would not be able to adopt rules prohibiting them from doing so on its property. Guys, I think that is the way we have to go forward. Texas is leading the way in this example. I don't know of any other state that is doing it this way, but if you've got a permit and you're allowed on, if you've got a permit, the school district cannot ban you from carrying. That's the way I believe we have to go forward, because let's face it, we've got enough anti-gunners in leadership in school districts that you're never going to get protection for the students until the state says you cannot ban people from carrying it there if they've got a permit.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you,
I wonder what there's...
Charles, go.
Charles. There you go, Charles.
I wonder what the school's strategy will be to try and block that. I'm not trying to buy problems in advance. I just think we ought to craft a strategy that says, if they do this, we'll counter with that.
I don't know what they could do.
That's the point. We don't know.
Well, let me. I'm going to real quick. I want to relay something that Susan and I noticed yesterday. Yesterday was bill paying day, and so one of the things our city, you have to go into the office to pay your water bill. They don't have it set up to do it online yet. So yesterday I drove down to the city offices, and 3 or 4 years ago there was a big kerfuffle. The city of Sioux Falls, one of the good people from South Dakota Open Carry, challenged the city of Sioux Falls because there were no gun signs. Against state law, there were no gun signs up at City Hall. And City Hall was forced to pull them down. The mayor at the time, the mayor, he's no longer mayor, made a big thing of, please don't carry in here, but we cannot prohibit it. Just please don't. And if you have to, just be exceedingly careful. Just don't. So I go yesterday, this has been 4 or 5 years since the big kerfuffle, down to pay the water bill. And there's no gun sign on City Hall. It says, the sign, huge sign on the front door of City Hall says, firearms laws will be enforced. The only firearms law that applies to City Hall is you can't ban them. That's the law that's being enforced.
Yeah, but for the layman that's not familiar with those laws, right, that's a very misleading sign, right?
That's exactly what Susan pointed out to me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Here in North Carolina, one of our legislative priorities this time is for private schools or churches with private schools. As it is, a church you can carry in a church as long as the church allows it. But if a church has a private school attached to it, and many parochial and other Catholic and other schools do, I mean, Baptist, whatever, because they have a school attached, it's considered school grounds, and you cannot carry concealed. You can't carry at all. And so we had passed a law twice now, and it's been vetoed twice, saying effectively, if you have a school attached to your church, as long as students aren't there and it's outside of school hours, you can carry. So you have these little Baptist churches with little schools that, if they want to have protection for their congregation, now must hire outside private security guards. They cannot have their own parishioners guarding. They can't have a church security staff of their own made up of good people protecting the congregation. If we had a law like Texas, it would not be an issue.
Well, you made mention that Texas is leading the way here. I want to point out the way Texas, I think, is doing a great job, and other people have not. Maybe they're not catching on. Remember, Texas is recent to constitutional carry, right? So when they were being pushed and people wanted to get the constitutional carry there was a big part that said we want all or nothing, right? We want constitutional carry everywhere, 100% of the time, all of the time, and it went nowhere, and it went nowhere fast. So they agreed to do the constitutional carry with the same restrictions that they had based to their licensed carry holders, their licensed firearms holders. And what they've done since then is what we like to call the good compromise, right? The compromise for the left is we'll take half your gun rights today and the other half tomorrow. For us, the gun rights are we're going to give up no more, but we're going to continue to take back what has been taken from us every day. And that's what Texas did here. They said, okay, we'll take constitutional carry from this point forward. And now these bills come up. Hey, remember the constitutional carry and the firearms permitted carry we have now? Yeah, we want to add this to it. And guess what they'll do next term? They'll add this to it. And next month they'll add this to it. So in 5 or 10 years, they will have darn near close to 100% constitutional and permitted carry everywhere in that state with no restrictions. And that's how they're doing. They're biting back. They're taking the little bites out of the elephant to get back all of the rights there in Texas.
Yes, they've adopted the Arizona model.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Yeah, we're caught up here on that. Let's... Boy, the next one, this next one is a not so good one, but I think this is just a short term not so good. Illinois, the House has passed an assault weapons ban. Illinois lawmakers rushing to impose sweeping new infringements on the right to keep and bear arms took a major step towards getting a gun ban bill to the desk of Governor Pritzker early Friday morning. Just after midnight, the Protect Illinois Communities Act was approved on a 64-43 vote, sending the bill to the Senate, where lawmakers are expected to swiftly consider the anti-civil rights legislation before sending it to Pritzker for his approval. I got that one. That was a Cam Edwards story. Got it off Bearing Arms. And I'd just like to remind Governor Pritzker, we have sued Chicago, we meaning the Second Amendment Foundation, but also other pro-rights organizations have sued Illinois successfully many, many times, and we will again. I also want to remind people, I looked up earlier today, 4 former Illinois governors have spent time in prison. So Governor Pritzker, just call over to the state pen, go for the governor's wing. Anybody there will be able to tell you, man, don't do this. You're going to get smacked.
Yeah, the thing Pritzker's got going for him Yes, he's rich. He doesn't need to steal, unlike Blagojevich, etc.
Illinois actually changed its constitution so that governors can go straight to Stateville.
Paul, I love seeing these Illinois cases come up, and I know that your boss probably does too. The bow tie gun guy there, the executive director at Second Amendment Foundation, Mr. Alan Gottlieb. But listen, every time a case comes up out of Illinois, I'm pretty sure Alan looks around the room and goes, we could use some new carpets and furniture in here. Let's go after Illinois on this.
Unfortunately, go Charles.
We ought to adopt Illinois as our favorite RKBA pinata.
Yeah, when we get decisions that go our way, and we go after, for example, the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, we do get some expenses back. However, it's not all the cost of the lawsuit comes back. I wish it were that way. I wish actually we could get not only the full cost, but maybe punitive damages. Wouldn't that, not only are you going to have to pay for every bit of this lawsuit that SAF or GOA or somebody else brought, the state of Illinois, now you've got to pay that entity $5 million in addition to every penny they put towards this lawsuit. That would be my dream right there.
Yeah, that would
The problem
be nice.
with that is that you put the bill for malfeasance basically on the residents of Illinois, not on the legislators who didn't uphold their oath.
But
You can
Charles,
impose
isn't that the incentive for them to stop electing those people? Because otherwise, there's no disincentive to continue to elect bad people.
No, because you're right. But you would, if you had a moral electorate, you might be right. But the problem is you have so much cognitive dissonance in Illinois. I'll give you an example. Railroad workers, they're highly unionized. Okay. But railroad workers are among the most conservative people in the world, and they're not very forgiving. It's a very hard form of conservatism, and yet they vote almost monolithically Democrat. So there's a disconnect there when you have states like Illinois, where you have a high percentage of people who are voting for people on the left, despite the result to themselves. That's cognitive dissonance.
Well, they might be, like you said, strong conservatives, but we know who the union busters are as well. So they're voting along the lines of their own pockets there, I think.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the
as
problem
we say in
with
Chicago,
That's the
Chicago,
Illinois. Yeah,
go ahead.
vote early, vote often.
That was what I was going to say.
The problem with Illinois is you actually have two states. You have Chicago,
Yep.
and you have the rest of the state. And there are pro-gun, or there have been in my memory, pro-gun Democrats downstate who are very active.
Yeah.
And even the NRA's former representative, Todd Vandermeide, got started because his union was pro-gun. And they said, we want these anti-gun bills stopped.
Well, and
John Dingell was a Democrat from Michigan, and for many years sat on the board of the NRA.
Yeah.
Look at we've got some fantastic pro-rights people. Look at in Illinois. Look at what they've done with iGold, Illinois Gun Owner Lobby Day. The last couple years with COVID hasn't been as big, but I expect in 2023 it to come roaring back. We've got some very, very strong pro-rights organizations in Illinois. Everything is happening so fast with this lame duck session that I don't know that they can get up momentum to stop this. It's going to have to be taken down by lawsuit.
Yeah.
I think the Illinois has what's called witness slips, and I think you have those or something similar in Arizona. And someone on their side admitted that the witness slips against this bill were twice as many as for it. Nonetheless, the Democrats voted the way with the way the money was being sent to them.
Yeah, and this was party line. My understanding was this was absolutely party line, with a few Democrats backing away from it, but not a single Republican, my understanding is, went for this thing. So, and generally, our next story, generally, with the exception of Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Hawaii, California, and a few other states, statewide, state by state, we're advancing towards freedom. Here is something that looks like it may be an exception. Georgia, let me go ahead and just read this. This is off 11alive.com. Georgia's gun laws will get another look when the legislature convenes starting next week. Though gun rights have ruled in the legislature, some want to see whether these rights can get pushed back just a little in the name of public parks and money-making events. State law explicitly allows legal gun owners to carry guns on government parkland if they want, which drove gun rights activists to successfully challenge a ban on guns at the Georgia Botanical Garden, a city-owned Piedmont park. In November, Zoo Atlanta, located at City's Grant Park, bent its rules to allow firearms on site after another threat of legal action. A similar change also reportedly drove Music Midtown, also at Piedmont Park, to abruptly cancel its festival last fall. The one quote I've got from the story: "Obviously, we don't want to lose these sorts of events," said State Senator Elena Parent, a Democrat out of Atlanta, who expects a bill to be introduced which would change state law. If changed, the law would allow events held at government parks to ban firearms for the duration of the event. Georgia's moving in the wrong direction, it looks like, or at least this story implies that Georgia's going to move in the wrong direction. Honestly, if it means that I can't go down to jazz at the park if I can't carry, well, I guess jazz at the park goes away. You see these big tears are rolling down my face.
I think what'll happen is that sooner or later people will realize that's an attractive nuisance, and either the bad guys will target it, or someone will prevail with the idea that when you put up a no-gun sign, all you're doing is attracting violence. Somehow or other, we've got to get that message out. We've got to do a more effective job of saying that gun-free zones equal free fire zones for bad guys.
Yeah, politically, I don't think this is...
We looked at this a couple, 2-3 months ago, I think, Paul, and everybody else when this first came up out of Atlanta. And remember, this was you had that hybrid of public owned property that was privately run kind of thing. The zoo, I think the Mercedes, whatever the stadium is down there that the football team plays in, same thing. It was purely those, when we looked at it, those little bit of anti-guns, the Democrats, the low-level city officials, county officials that they had there, and the first court ruling they had said, sorry about your luck. If it's public funded, it's public funded, and that's what we're seeing now there. Like you said, in Georgia, is this going to be rolled back? Listen, they just reelected their governor. Although the opposition wouldn't say that she lost, but They've just reelected their government on a strong Second Amendment. It took them 2 years to get into the groove, but a strong Second Amendment, campaign. And I don't see this as getting through the legislature. It's a red legislature, even if they do have a couple of turnovers, and it's definitely not going to cross the governor's desk without a veto on it if some kind of anti-gun legislation comes through. So it's good that we publicize it. It's good that we talk about it. I think Georgia's safe, and everybody should get out there and work every day to make sure it stays that way.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Mike, especially with Brian Kemp there, plus a red legislature. I think that whoever wrote the story is hoping Republicans might switch over, but I really doubt it.
The media wagging the dog, that would never happen, John. That would never happen.
Exactly. Especially in Atlanta.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. CNT Designs at Arms says Democrats know these bills and bans are unconstitutional. They just don't care. I think he's onto something there. I think, especially like in Illinois, they have to know if they pass this assault weapons ban against the most common rifle in use in the United States right now. If they pass it, they've got to know it's going to be shot down. They're just trying to buy time. Let's get this little infringement for as long as we can, even though we know it's going to get shot down.
Yeah, from what I read about the law, and if it's the one I'm thinking, was it HB 5855 or the Senate version of it, they were going to grandfather in assault weapons, but you did have to register them. But magazines, you couldn't possess. There was no grandfathering on, plus magazines with more than 10 rounds capacity.
Well, this 10. What I want to know is where they're coming at, and it seems almost universal. A 10-round magazine limit is where they're coming in. I want to know where they're getting this magic that 10 rounds is enough.
Because they think it's what will swallow.
Yeah, if one of the statistics I like to use is that it's actually fairly uncommon for a home invasion to be one person. It's usually 2 to 3 people is a home invasion. And almost as rare as a one-person home invasion is a one-shot stop from a handgun. It just first shot usually doesn't stop the action of the person who needs to have their action stopped. Usually it's 2 to 3, so 3 people invading, and you've got a 10 round. You better make sure every round fired out of your handgun hits its mark. Do not flinch. Do not miss your aim just a little bit, or all of a sudden you don't have enough capacity. Here, I don't know who did this, but let me get a couple more comments in. I don't have the name of the person that made this comment, but using the courts to use up our defense money. We don't have deep pockets. Well, that's true. It does cost money to put these lawsuits through. Are they maybe hoping to bankrupt us by just law after law after law after law, and we can't possibly sue against all of them? Do you think maybe that's...
Yeah, clearly, right? Every time we look at a case, whether it's the cases out of Buffalo last week, or it's little cases like this where we have to sue to get our own individual rights back. That the unlimited funds available to the Bloomberg camp and everybody he supports, it's nothing. Whereas if you or I had to pull a $50,000 check out to try and get back our basic little gun rights, well, that sets us back for a couple of years. It's it's always in their thinking. And if people are saying that it's not, on the liberal side, if they're saying it's not, oh no, we're doing it for the children, it's a load of crap. You're trying to financially place a burden on us to where we just give up and walk away. And that doesn't matter if it's us or the gun companies. They still have to defend themselves. We still have to fight for our rights back, and that all takes dollars. And that's definitely part of their thinking.
I think Mike is absolutely right. When you look at it, that big law has jumped on the same side, and when you have a city imposing a regulation or a new law, an ordinance, whatever, and they have to defend it, big law steps in, whether it's paid for by Bloomberg or just gratis as pro bono for the public. The city's not paying to defend the law that they just passed. It's not the city attorney that's having to salary paying it, or they're not having to go hire outside attorneys. Whereas when we challenge the law, we have to pay for it. Exactly what Mike was saying.
Let me get another comment in here. CNT says people will go to jail over these laws, and people will be sitting in prison while these cases are challenged in the courts. Unfortunately, he's right. There's gonna be some people that are bitten by these laws. And recently, and I'm trying to remember where it was. It was the Washington D.C. Case. There were people challenging not being able to carry on public transit, the ban on carry in public transit. The judge says, well, nobody's actually been arrested for carrying on public transit yet, and so they don't have standing to challenge this law. Yeah,
they need to go for declaratory. They need to go for declaratory judgment.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got to get, somebody has to get bit as it stands right now in order for the law to get challenged. So,
or they have to get in writing documentation that they would be prosecuted if they did it. That's what the whole Heller case ended up pivoting on, which started as Parker. What happened was his Heller's original attorney instructed him to go down to D.C. and try to register a gun and get a rejection letter. That one thing was the resulted in standing for District of Columbia versus Heller.
Yeah. Let me. We're getting a lot of comments in. Let me just get a couple of more in here real quick. Gun Websites checking in, says, "Oh snap! Charles is on again. Tucson in the house." And John over on the Facebook side, Bloomberg spent $1 billion to run for the Democratic nominee and $100 million to deliver Florida to Biden. We definitely have big money on the opposing side. What we have on our side, though, and I'm going to put a little bit of a plug in here, we have on our side is numbers. And where those numbers help is if you become a member of the Second Amendment Foundation. It's only $150 for a lifetime membership. And that money directly goes to suing these places, to suing Illinois, to suing Washington, D.C., and getting our rights back, winning back our freedoms one lawsuit at a time is the tag phrase. So, saf.org.join.
For the record, they did spend $100 million to try and to give Biden Florida, but it didn't work. So
there you go.
We welcomed his money here in our state in his losing effort.
All right, let's see where we got next story, and I'm going to skip down one. I'm going to go straight to this Dan Waz article. This off of AmmoLand. Dan has a lot more time, I think, than the rest of us do. Dan went through that huge omnibus bill that passed, and he found several things that are in this omnibus bill that passed and was signed into law by Biden. He writes from his article in AmmoLand, the ATF now has all the money they need for the following: proceed with Biden's pistol brace, I think is what he meant, agenda, and the ATF's illegal gun registry. Over $700 million in funds to encourage states to pass red flag laws. There are funds there to encourage the VA medical centers to confiscate firearms owned by veterans. There's money for the Department of Education to push their so-called safe storage gun laws on parents. Funds for the VA to keep notes on the exact location of veterans' firearms through their gun storage maps program. Wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. Compensation for families of deceased ATF agents, which some say have indications of future gun confiscation. Programs designed to discourage women from exercising their Second Amendment rights. Many Dickey Amendment violations. The Dickey Amendment, which prohibits CDC from using funds to conduct research that could be used to advocate for gun control. We're almost there. CDC suppression of self-defense statistics, ignoring its own study from the 1990s. Just two more: violent anti-government ideology propaganda, and finally, domestic radicalization research. That's one heck of a list from Dan Waz of everything of many anti-gun things that were in the omnibus bill. That's the danger of these big bills, guys. These things have got to pass. You get stuff like this.
I think one thing that may mitigate that a little bit is the recent concessions made by Speaker McCarthy in order to get elected about having there be a 72-hour pause to read the bill. I think we may get some slight relief on that. Slight.
Well, and even that omnibus, what was that, 4,000 pages? 72 hours to even for a team to read 4,000 pages? That's quite the undertaking.
I could do it if I had a show to prepare for the next day.
Yeah, they're not long pages. The bill was full of fluff. I mean, $3.5 million for the Michelle Obama Trail, money for a Pat Leahy Center now that he's retiring. What should have happened and didn't happen is the Republicans should have forced it to just do a continuing resolution rather than sign on to the omnibus bill, knowing that you have now a Republican House which could have stripped out a lot of the crap, because money bills must originate in the House.
Yeah, the House has the purse strings, yes.
Yeah. Hey, Charles, I got a question. Now, we saw the deals made last night, on the 15th vote to get McCarthy in there.
Like that.
These were all, handshake deals, right? They're going to write this down in their guidebook, but this is not into their policy, procedure, or law or anything like that. What's to keep McCarthy from deciding at the end of the year, oh, it was too important to wait, we're going to have this bill, here it is, you got 3 hours to read it, or all the other things that they got during this negotiation. So that was my question last night. I haven't seen anything, so I'm curious if you've seen anything yet.
Nothing in writing, no. But remember, Congress has a protocol that any handshake bill bears with it the other hand, which contains a latex glove for insertion into the proper orifice.
There you go. That's how it works. So yeah. It's like one of those. Oh, you make sure you get it in writing. Did anybody get this in writing? Because it sounds like it just got to literally the 11th hour there, right? And it might have just been all show.
Congress has what's known as the Unwritten Digital Penetration Act.
All right. Okay. Pete over at Gun Website says they have the staff. They can take it apart and check it, but it would be better to see one issue, one bill. I like that.
Right.
Arizona has that in its constitution. I wish the federal government could adopt it as federal law. I don't think we'll ever get a constitutional amendment on it. It's too complex a process. But if they did have federal law that says one issue, one bill, that would go a long way towards it. It would also clog up the channel for doing huge legislation and make them pass one at a time.
Mm-hmm. Charles, and I don't know the composition of your Supreme Court in Arizona, but if a bill came up that had multiple things, would your justices say, oh, well, it's all kind of related, so therefore it's all one thing?
No, they just struck one down for exactly that reason.
That's good.
No, the Arizona Supreme Court is fairly solid. I'll give you an example. In 2016, AZCDL successfully advocated for a bill that said if a municipality did not obey state law on preemption, that they could lose all of their state shared revenue for that year. And it passed, and we got it signed into law. And sure enough, down the pike comes Roland Tucson, and they destroyed 4,780 guns in violation of state law to sell them to FFLs. And we put the procedure in that a legislator files with the AG investigates, and if it's a violation, he goes to the Supreme Court in a special action to defund the city of Tucson. And that's what happened in 2018 with Tucson's Destroying Guns bill. And the Supreme Court ruled that the city of Tucson had 30 days to change their ordinance, or they would lose $116 million of state shared revenue just in 2019 alone. And the vote against the city of Tucson was 7-0 in the Supreme Court.
And I would guess the city of Tucson set up, took notice, and in about 28 days changed their tune.
Well, they changed the law, but the interesting thing was they voted only to do it by 4-3. And amongst the three that voted against changing it was a lady who's now mayor.
Wow. Real quick, Pete over at Gun Websites has this. Did Charles the machine gun practice on DM Air Force Base this morning from his place? Apparently you're just a few blocks from Pete over at Gun Websites.
Yeah, I am. I normally hear the machine gun practice, but I stayed up very late last night. I was very intimately acquainted with my CPAP, which makes a lot of white noise. And you could probably have nuclear weapons testing here, and I might not hear it.
All right. Let's see here. And we got just time for it. This last story comes off Slate, and I'm going to really strongly synopsize this one. Slate is really worried the Supreme Court is going to take another swipe and give us all more firearms rights. Just a little bit from the article. Last summer, the Supreme Court launched a revolution in Second Amendment law, creating a fundamental right to carry a concealed firearm and declaring that all restrictions to the right to keep and bear arms are presumptively unconstitutional. I'm just going to go ahead and, again, I'm going to summarize the rest. What Slate is saying is that the New York Concealed Carry Improvement Act has been challenged so often on so many sides, it's getting fast-tracked to the Supreme Court, and they're worried it's going to be shot down. I'm certainly hoping that their fears are well-founded. The Supreme Court doesn't have to have a split to take a case. They can just take a case because it's that important.
I read through the article, and there were some, and we know that where there are strong carry laws, people are safer. Well, when you follow the link, who does it go to? Giffords. I'm sorry. It's not unbiased information. Or as I call it, the cult of personality known as Giffords.
Well, and where there are strong carry laws, you mean like on the New York City subway where you're taking your life into your own hands just by not even going on the subway, but by getting through the turnstile to go down there. you're really going into a no man's land. Is that the strong carry laws they're supporting? Yeah. Anyway,
that's the strong anti-carry laws, right?
Yeah.
When I hear strong carry laws, I think of Arizona, Texas, Georgia, those kind of places.
My question is, what gun safety classes does Giffords teach?
You got them confused. The safety classes come for every town for gun safety. Remember, they're just full of them. Every town has a gun safety class. Every town. Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, I wonder if we can get them to approve a tax credit for buying a new safe. I mean, they want a safe storage. Well, let's make it a I was just at the gun show this morning. I saw this $4,000 safe. It was a Liberty big boy. I was like, well, I think I can almost fill that. But 4,000 is 4,000. But
the problem with any kind of a tax credit is that it comes with strings as far as regulating what a safe must be, and I'm in favor of this. I'm in favor of a separation between government and people.
Well,
yeah. Well, the government's in favor of separating you from your money, though. That's the problem, right?
Right.
There are John and I have seen them. There's a couple states. I think Alabama, Mississippi might be them. Florida looked at this law last year, where we've all seen that, like the back to school tax free days. They now have the hunters and the safety and the sporting stuff. And I've seen that gun safes apply in those couple of states during those tax free weekends. So you can not get a tax credit, just you don't have to pay tax on that safe. So
right.
That's usually when you see the sales from Liberty telling you it's a $500 off weekend or kind of thing.
Yeah.
Don't
they call it? Isn't that generally termed a tax holiday?
Yes, yeah. Tax holidays. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do this, guys. We're just about to the top of the hour. We're just about to where we've got to cut off for the day. I'm going to start with you, Mike. Last in, first out. But Mike, I've got you tagged as the rundown there. So tell us about the rundown. But Arms Room Radio is coming up here in about another hour?
Yeah, another hour. In fact, I'm sitting here in the back office at Always Armed in Orlando, one of the bigger gun stores in town. We're doing a live remote here today from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. So I expect high shenanigans level today, today's program. That's armsroomradio.com. You can hear it there. Rundown Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. It's the rundown.us, and it's all over all the other places you can view and watch and listen to podcasts and video series. So we just hit 8 years with the Arms Room Radio, and Craig and I just hit our 400th episode, I think it is, going into the third season. He keeps track of that stuff. I don't. I just show up when he says to show up, like here.
Well, and if you're a fan of the rundown, you really ought to go look back at not 3 days ago, but a week ago this past Thursday, when there was this old bald farmer trucker that sat in because I think one of the guys was off flying somewhere, and they needed somebody to set in. So
that guy had a blown magneto on an airplane during rollout and had to lay underneath the airplane trying to pull it out for the next 6 hours. So it was a fun day.
All right. Real quick comment from gun websites. He says, I know Mike has an event set up for SHOT. What is that, Mike? Are you going to have a bowling tournament, or what's going on, man?
I'm just going to ignore the bowling tournament thing. That's a family show, so we'll just keep going. We have. Thank you for bringing that up. We do. I'll be at SHOT Show. We'll be on Radio Row there again, as usual, with Arms Room Radio. That's Tuesday the 17th through the 20th. I think it is 17th through 20th there, Tuesday through Friday. And then on that Monday night at the Hofbrau House, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., Anybody, you don't have to be a SHOT Show attendee. You can get your butt to Vegas, come out to the Hop Row House, get a bunch of free swag, a bunch of free drinks, and hang out with all of your good friends in the gun rights and gun community.
And bring your ear pro. You'll thank me later.
It's a little loud in the back. All right. It's a little loud.
Charles, man, Liberty Watch Radio, please plug that and anything else you want to plug today, man.
Coming up on my 25th year on the air and in May, and libertywatchradio.com. Go on the recent shows tab. Tomorrow will be a stunningly good Right to Keep and Bear Arms episode. I'll figure out what that'll be later on this afternoon. And Arizona Citizens Defense League, azcdl.org. We're going to be in a pitched battle for the next 4 years with the current Miss Leader of the state, the former Secretary of State of Arizona, which is how I will refer to her for the next 4 years, as the former Secretary of State.
All right,
but I don't have any. But I don't have any sour grapes.
Yeah, AZCDL's got its work cut out at the very least for the next couple years. So
yeah,
John,
I don't think anything bad. I don't think anything bad will pass, but the question is, will anything good?
You know, off topic, and we're already late, but a little off topic. There was a big. Everybody was saying, it's 3 votes, it's 5 votes, it's however many votes, and we don't have a Speaker of the House yet. I think it went to 15 votes. I would have been okay with it going 175 to 200 votes, and we went into May without a Speaker, because that means nothing is coming out of Congress. And I would have been just fine with that. Wouldn't have bothered me in the least.
Yeah, we could have stopped at the First Amendment in the middle of it. Congress shall pass no law. Stop.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes. John, Only Guns and Money. Anything else you want to plug, man? Your turn. What's up?
Well, I will be seeing Mike in Las Vegas next week. Well, the week after next. Whatever. I am going to SHOT. The blog No Lawyers, Guns and Money is coming up on our 13th year, which I guess in kind of like dog years, we're pretty old. Blog years are probably even longer than dog years. People can find me at onlygunsandmoney.com. Very active with Grassroots North Carolina, grnc.org. We have some important bills to pass this year. Permitless carry, getting rid of the Jim Crow era pistol purchase permit, getting rid of the church school loophole. So there are some good things that are coming. Unfortunately, we've just reminded the legislators that we had an 80% success rate on those that we backed, and the Republicans now have a supermajority in the state Senate and are missing one more person to be a supermajority in the state House. So we finally, I think, can override gubernatorial vetoes.
That's good. And also, if you are wanting to know what's going on with the NRA, specifically the shenanigans on the backside of the NRA, the number one place I could point you to is onlygunsandmoney.com. John does a fantastic job of keeping abreast what's going on and putting what's going on in layman's terms so even people like me can understand it. So that's going to do it for us today. We're what, 4 minutes late so far. Everybody, thanks for coming along today, and everybody who's commented and joined us live, thank you. Come join us again next week, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time, and again on Saturday at noon Central Time for more editions of The Bullet. Until then, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll see you